Congratulations to the latest Podcast Evolved book club. I am your host, Krysta, and with me today is David.
Hello, everybody.
And Aaron.
Hi, guys.
And this time we're talking about Dominion Splinter from Tales from Slipspace. Ooh. Ah. So the author is Frank O'Connor, the ever creepy...
I know him.
Yeah, the ever creepy, like...
Beamish
face that he does. Yeah, the Beamish face. That's really scary and terrifying. The publisher is Dark Horse. The format available is print, hardcover, and digital. The release date is the 25th of October 2016 digital, and the 29th of November 2016 in print. So this one is actually probably one of the more unique comics in this collection. It tells of Cortana post Halo 4. Ooh.
It's pretty good. It's a really important book that ties in how Cortana got where she got in Halo 5.
Like, the thing that floors me is it's pretty well hidden in Tales from Slipspace.
Yeah.
You buy it not knowing this is even there. If you remember, in Halo 4, Cortana bit the dust and became super rampant crazy. And so this is it opens with her basically dying. I mean, she's kind of fading away into nothingness until she sees a spark of light, and it just happens to be the Forerunner Domain. So the Forerunner Domain, just a quick synopsis, is basically the entire all of the Forerunner's knowledge on technology, history, species, just the universe itself. All of that is contained in something called a domain that the Forerunners had access to at maturity, and it basically was their internet. Like, they could look up whatever they want. They would be able to have whatever knowledge they needed pretty instantaneously.
It's a galaxy internet thing.
It seems to be like a universal internet thing. It has existed for a very long time, even possibly before the Forerunners, if you want to go and listen to some book clubs.
That's in the Greg Bear books if you want to learn more particularly about the domain. The domain has survived the era of the Forerunners and the firing of the Halo array, and now Cortana has found it in kind of a dormant state. It's not doing much right now. It's kind of waiting for someone.
Yeah.
And so the keeper of the domain, which some might argue is Warden Eternal?
It is Warden, I believe, by the end.
There's a big back and forth kind of cat and mouse thing of them almost riddling each other to death, basically. Just very, kind of test your worth stuff.
Sorry, I was going to say there's all this like cool imagery going on in the background of like...
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's not really clear what the hell is happening.
I assume it's just like a weird representation that they're having while they talk, but like it's got this soldier in the background, he's blowing in a horn, he has a sword. Is it supposed to be like a Spartan?
No, it is supposed to be Roland of Gilead. Yeah, it's from this tale. The Browning, I think, wrote this poem about something there, but I can't remember the Call of Roland or something like that. It's
the Song of Roland.
The Song of Roland, yes. So he's this weird character. We won't get into too details. It's a French lore kind of historical figure that kind of has like a bunch of like songs and poems and stuff written about him. And Stephen King wrote loads of novels. His Dark Tower series is all inspired by that original kind of story. So that was the character, the blowing this horn, which is a special thing with a special super cool sword.
I had that listed at the end, but I didn't dive into it too far.
Yeah, I don't know why it's in this, but like it's crazy.
Durandal is mentioned quite a lot, which is the sword that Roland has, and she compares herself to Durandal.
From my grasp of it, she compares herself to Durandal a lot because Durandal is one of 3 swords.
Is it like the same caliber as Excalibur kind of thing?
As far as I can tell from my vague glance of it, yeah, there are these 3 super swords built, and one of them is called Cortana.
Oh, okay.
We'll go over it as we go, but there's Durandal, there's Joyusa, and Cortana. And these are the 3 swords.
So this is almost them kind of nodding to what Cortana's name is actually derived from.
I think they're kind of referencing some of this because the other thing, I saved it for the end in the lore, is that the AI in Marathon is Durandal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is like old Bungie lore, where they used these kind of names and figures in their older games.
Okay, so this is a lot of deep, deep Bungie lore that they're going into.
Frank O'Connor seems to like to dive deep in these things.
Yeah, well, she's kind of the closest thing to omniscient that the series has other than Gravemind.
And now that she's pretty much immortal by the end of Halo 5, so it's kind of crazy.
Let's talk about the visuals real quick, because you touched on that. There are these gorgeous watercolor motifs that are really, really well done. Like, to the point where you can, if you look closely, you can actually see the canvas that it was painted on, or the paper, the texture of the paper it was painted on.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, it's really, really pretty. Like you said, it's just, it's really hard to visualize exactly what AIs do when they interact, and I think that's what they were trying to portray in this.
Yeah.
This weird interaction between AIs, kind of the numbers and the back and forth, and the kind of trying to sneak around firewalls and stuff like that.
And the weird panels and just the weird text in places and stuff. It's quite esoteric.
Well, and also, AIs can send images to each other, so... Like, her sending Durandal to Warden Eternal might actually be like the poem and the image of him or something like that.
Yeah, and I think for me, my favourite image in this entire thing is the ones where Cortana's this small blue figure and then there's this like looming face in the stars above her that's glowing, that's Warden Eternal, like slowly starting to take form.
Yeah, it was cool. She kind of drew him out through conversation.
Yeah, I wonder, I think there's reference to it somewhere, could be in like the Kilo 5 books, but like AIs do things like they send images and materials. Oh, I tell you what it's in. It's in Last Light and the sequel. The Forerunner AI uses things like this to hack other AIs. You know the way he'll ask innocuous questions and use that to hack them, and I think that's kind of what Cortana's done here. She's like shared some images and mentioned some poetry and stuff, and before Warden Eternal knows what happened, she's hacked him.
Yeah, because as you can see, as the comic keeps going, it seems Cortana kind of gets bigger and bigger in the imagery until she almost like looms over him instead.
Yeah, and then there's this moment where there's like several Cortanas and they're kind of taken down and hacking the Warden Eternal the same way that they did to Ur-Didact in the end of Halo 4.
Yeah.
This is very much the image of that as well. There's a great image of the composed humans. And it looks like hell. It just looks like they're being tortured.
That's the second time we've had that.
Yeah. It's like a pretty horrible existence to be a composed human.
Yeah, because we had that like wailing tube thing in Escalations that they were in.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, the composer, like, almost captures people. They're literally captured, like, their essence and their feelings.
Digitized, yeah.
Funny, when we were reading this, I was reading a few things beforehand, and I'd seen some people speculate that the suffering they seem to be going through, is it just that because they're humans, they can't cope in the formless world of the AI?
I think that too.
Might be it.
It's with their minds. I think they don't comprehend the digital kind of world. It's what they said. Whenever they reformed them back, they were always corrupted individuals and stuff. They were like abominations, I think is the word they used to describe. Like decomposed humans, let's say.
Well, all of our like thoughts and feelings and everything is so tied to our physical being and not our mental being.
That's true.
So, I mean, to go from something physical to something only mental is probably way too much.
And the other thing is, these people are freshly composed, because these would be the people from the New Phoenix incident.
Yeah, which just happened. Like, I'm thinking Cortana doesn't drift for too long until she finds the domain.
The rumours, or the way I've read it that people have suggested it, is that in the end of Halo 4, the Didact falls into the Slipspace portal, like vortex on the ship, Mantle's approach, and that sent him to the, what did they call it, the Composer's Cradle. And that's where the composed people were sent. But that same Slipspace portal, the going theory seems to be that Cortana fell into that as the ship broke apart, and that's how she ended up on Genesis. She passed through the Slipspace portal and entered the domain that way, which would probably make sense because then the Didact went through it a different way.
Well, once she had access to the domain, which by the end of this comic, spoilers, she does, she could do anything with it and go anywhere. I imagine that once you have the full access of the domain and an understanding of it, you can do pretty much anything you need to do.
That's true.
AIs that are completely ingrained in the domain become almost like gods, like Medicant Bias. Like, he was an entity. He was a crazy strong entity, and I think Cortana merging with the domain is she's probably on the same caliber, if not higher, than Medicant Bias.
Yeah, I will say I was like a small bit proud of like, this is a human AI that hacked its way into the domain. Like, that's incredibly impressive. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, fuck you, go girl. Do you know what I mean? That was cool.
And at the same time, Cortana has been exposed to so many different Forerunner artifacts that it would make sense that she's the only one who could probably pull it off at this point.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? That last panel, is there something slightly terrifying about giant Cortana with her like blank white eyes staring down?
Incredibly creepy. I think that's the whole point, is to make you see that she is just this crazy being at this stage now.
Well, she's gained all of this power and craziness. It's like...
What's that anime, Krysta, with the giant people?
Attack on Titans?
Attack on Titans. It reminds me of that. If she opened her mouth there and there was a big scary toothy grin, it would... It's that kind of like creepy look about it.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, so do we think that Cortana's... Like, because there's a huge character change between Halo 4 and Halo 5, do we think that's because of the domain, or do we think that's just Cortana's personality, like, actually coming out?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's broken
and
Cortana.
Rampancy. Broken Cortana, yeah.
I don't think this is the full Cortana. This is just the bits that are left. And I think she's been... I don't know if she's been tainted by the domain, because in another story in Fractures, they talk about how one of the final acts of the Forerunners was to repair the domain.
Yeah.
Just on that, I do think that the damage the Gravemind did to Cortana has been really understated. I think that's a big key in this, is what the Gravemind did to Cortana.
Well, she's kind of doing exactly what the Gravemind wants her to do. She's creating kind of a oneness within the entire universe, which is what the Gravemind wants too.
I mean, there's comments in this to her saying that she defeated the Flood and that she sent it, and I think that's very much like the Gravemind would want her to think like that.
Yeah, he wants her to think that they're dead and they're gone.
Yeah.
When she has that image and she's talking about all the rest, there's that little image of John looking at her on the pedestal when they're on the Forward Unto Dawn, you know, leaving from the Ark, and like, she definitely doesn't mention that she had a lot of help with everything.
Yeah.
She seems to have forgotten all about John's part in this. I don't know, I think this is bits of Cortana. Personally, I have my own crazy theory that it's not Cortana anyway, but I don't know if we want to go into that.
You are not alone. This is the internet.
Yeah.
Internet is made
true.
for mad theories.
I personally, if I go with my own theory that the Cortana that finished Halo 4 is a copy of the Cortana that started Halo 4. I don't think she's I don't think she's the original. You know, in Halo 4,
do you think the original's dead then?
There's an easy cop out.
You know, during the bit in Halo 4 when the librarian takes John and Cortana gets like sucked out of the system briefly and you lose her?
Yeah. You think the librarian took
I think
her?
the librarian's AI took her and copied her, and the Cortana you get back is a fractured copy that doesn't know she's a fractured copy, because Cortana kept splitting and she kept like shattering into pieces. I think the real Cortana's out there somewhere repaired and healthy.
When maybe we'll find her when we find the librarian eventually, because that's still a thing.
Yeah, I think there's something. I think the real Cortana's somewhere else, and that's how they're gonna... I think that's how they're eventually going to like have the, oh well, Cortana wasn't really evil and Cortana didn't actually kill all these people, because that's not Cortana.
Yeah, it'd be kind of a cop-out though. I'm not sure how I'd feel about it.
It kind of is, but then again, it does stay true to the whole AI thing. Like, AIs copy themselves and AIs move along and change, and...
They're also extremely complicated.
Isn't this basically how the Covenant got their, like, basic AIs? Aren't they a copy of Mendicant Bias?
Did they ever say that?
I don't remember that being in anything.
I thought that, you know, the, like, little sort of, like, slightly dumb AIs that the Covenant have in some ships?
Yeah, but I thought they made the AIs, but they just put them...
Heavily
they basically shackled them.
Yeah, I thought they were based, though, off the fragment of Mendicant Bias in the Dreadnought.
Stop making up lore, Aaron.
I don't think they would mess with Medicant bias specifically just because they thought he was a god, but
I don't think they could, even if they wanted to.
I don't know.
Because Medicant bias tries to leave a couple times. Another thing is, if you remember the terminal from Halo CE, the AI wants the Covenant to go away because then it'll be free. The Covenant AI.
That's
when
right,
he's talking
actually,
to Guilty Spark. He's talking about how they need, if they die, if they release the Flood, then I'll finally be free.
If it's a broken, corrupted copy, it could do anything.
Yeah.
One panel we didn't talk about is the one where, or one thing I didn't talk about, when she's subduing the Warden Eternal, and in the background, she's gone red and crazy.
Yeah.
She's like built out of these, they look like eggs connected by spaghetti, but they're blue at the bottom and they're red at the top.
Yeah, it's a very weird image. I'm not sure if it's trying to simulate, like, it kind of almost looks like the brain paths a brain takes.
That's what I was thinking of, synapses and stuff like that, and then it's just like copy. So I thought these are just all copies and stuff like that, and you can see different fragments to her in the pictures. It's hard to vocalize what we're looking at.
Could it be that, because Cortana had many, many copies when the UR Didact died, could it be that they're all attacking Warden Eternal at the same time, and this is kind of a representation of it?
That's what I thought, yeah.
There's one of them is kneeling on his head and seems to be hacking him at the time.
Yeah. This is one that I think we'll actually see a lot come out of it. We already have in Halo 5, but keep coming back to this one. I think it'll make more and more sense as we learn more about what Cortana is now.
Yeah, and I assume like all the Frank O'Connor stuff that mentions Durandal and the Song of Roland and all of that, like that's not coincidence that there is Roland the AI and Cortana the sword and Cortana the person.
Yeah.
And the last thing she says is like, it's going to do something joyous. I think that's obviously another reference to the third sword.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that this is such a strange poem. Not strange, but not well known in America.
It's a really, well, it's a, hang on, I have details. It's not well known over here either, to me, Krysta, anyway. It's a 12th to 14th century manuscript. The Song of Roland is an epic poem based on the Battle of Ricu Paris in 778. During the reign of Charlemagne. It is the oldest major surviving work of French literature and exists in various manuscripts. So it's very, 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 very old.
And the poem I spoke of, that's a more recent kind of modern take on it.
Ah.
I think it's Roland, Child to the Dark Tower came. It's written, I tried to read it once years ago when I was a younger man. It was incredibly difficult in how it is wording. Just because it inspired Stephen King's novels that I loved, so it's all about Dark Tower and craziness and all sorts of stuff. But that's based loosely on that as well.
It'll be interesting to see where all of this goes, because it feels like the Song of Roland is actually very, very essential to what's going to happen next in the Halo story. Or at least a good idea of what might happen next.
Which I find fascinating.
Loosely based on, yeah.
You can't help but think that they're hinting at stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hinting on something big, and it's probably going to happen in Halo Infinite. Yay!
Yay! Infinite Halos.
So just to preface that, I bought Tales from Slipspace just for this, because I had no idea what happened between Halo 4 and 5, and it's almost essential to those games. So if you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. Very informative, very important to the lore. It's amazing that they hid it in the comics, but whatever. It's interesting. Closing thoughts? Beautiful
artwork. Hard to kind of really understand what's going on, but that's just AIs in general and AI specific stories. This isn't the first one we've had by Frank O'Connor, and he seems to like doing AI stuff. I would like more from him. This is cool. It's going to be important. I love it.
Yeah, I've got a second. The artwork is beautiful. There are several panels that I would like without the text put up on a wall somewhere.
Yes, I completely agree.
And I have to hunt and see if someone has photoshopped out the text, because surely there has to be a good Halo fan out there that's done that. It's good, like there's big potential stuff in it, but it leaves you with a lot more questions and wonderings than it ever answers.
Yes, that is true.
Overall, I enjoyed it. I think the artwork goes a long way to it, but like David said, this is kind of like when I read Saint's Testimony the first 15 times and still didn't quite get it.
It's just very foreign to us to be reading about AI interactions. So.
Yeah. Like I said, Frank O'Connor seems to have a particular passion for this stuff.
And he does it in a way that I kind of like how we don't fully understand it, because I don't think we could. So I like how he writes it in a way that's kind of confusing.
Agreed.
But that's all we got for now. So thank you everyone for listening. Go check out our website. Go check out our other book clubs. I think we've basically covered every single one in Tales from Slipspace now, so go ahead and if you haven't, check out those other ones. But for all of us here at Podcast Evolved.
Evolved.